Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast number 238, recorded live back in my basement, where the good Lord intended, on March 2nd, 2015. I am your host, the real host of this fine production, Todd Klindt. And before we get too far down the road, I need to give a shout out to my folks at Rackspace. Go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out about all the crazy things that me and my friends at Rackspace are doing about SharePoint. That's at sharepoint.rackspace.com. For production notes, got number 237 out super late. As a matter of fact, it's not completely done yet. I still need to blog it, and I still need to update the video feed. And that's because I was on the road all week and all weekend, and I downloaded it. And so the way this works, Shane recorded it in Google, so it shows up in my YouTube channel. It takes YouTube a while to process the video after Shane does it. I assume it tries to make him sound less dumb and look less ugly. Anyway, it takes a couple hours, and then after it's processed on YouTube side, I can download it. And that's when I edit it and pull the audio out, put the lower thirds on, things like that. I did all that Wednesday morning when I was in San Antonio, and then promptly forgot about it. And then was busy all week doing things while I was at the office there in San Antonio. And then all weekend I was gone doing vacation-y stuff and just didn't even remember it. So this morning is when I finally created all the project stuff and pulled that out. So I apologize for that. That happens sometimes when I'm on the road. I may have to school Shane or Lori up on how to edit this thing so they can do it in my absence. But very late. But I do want to say thank you to Shane for covering for me for that. Again, 2 or 3 years ago, I was reading one of Scott Hanselman's blog posts, and he was talking about how consistency was the important piece of all this, and so I've tried to do that. Tried to put out as many of these a year as I can, and Shane filling in for me when I'm traveling is a big piece of that. So I appreciate that. I apologize to you guys for making you sit through Shane. I watched it. It wasn't the worst thing that I've seen on the web, but man, it's got to be right behind that, like Ding Fries Are Done Kid and Hamster Dance. It was not great, but bless him, he does the best with what he's got. I mean, he tries. He tries. But so we got, but I'll have that out as quickly as I can. For topics, I just can't think of anything that's come up in the last day or two in SharePoint to talk about. Oh, that's right. There was this one minor thing, probably nothing big, and I'm embarrassed to even have to say anything about it. But Microsoft, they said they are not going to push SharePoint patches out with Windows Update starting next month. Yeah, so I'm not sure what to make of all that. If you have been living under a rock or, something like that, a month ago, a little less than a month ago, shortly after they released all the SharePoint patches in February, Microsoft released a blog post that said they're going to push all of the non-security SharePoint patches out with Windows Update, after they had already pushed out all of the non-security patches in Windows Update. Anywho, there was much gnashing of teeth in the SharePoint community. I myself published a couple of blog posts on the subject. One, just to kind of warn everybody and to remind them they don't want to be just putting patches on their server all willy-nilly. And then I had another blog post to kind of walk you through how to get it all set up, and in case you wanted to embrace that model for whatever reason. And I even had one of the senior product managers, a gentleman by the name of Bill Bear. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about it a little bit. And it looked like it was a thing. It looked like it was set in stone. I'd actually heard about it for a while. I knew it was coming. I didn't like it when I heard about it, but it is what it is. But they actually pulled the trigger here a couple of weeks ago and made that happen. And again, there was much outcry. I would like to personally take credit for this because I had Bill on the show, and Bill said that nobody had ever complained about SharePoint patches, and then he gave us his email address, and the next thing you know, they're taking the SharePoint patches out of Windows Update. I'm not a big believer in coincidences. I don't know. I think it might be this guy. But anyway, all the panicking and the sounding of the klaxons and all that kind of stuff that happened a couple of weeks ago, we can ignore that now. So here is Microsoft's official stance, and it came from, well, I linked it in my blog, and I'll put a lower third here. But if you go to my blog, toddklindt.com, and I forgot what the short URL for that is, just a second. So if you go to toddklindt.com/no SharePoint patches in WU, you will see I linked to Stefan Gostner's blog post where he talked about it. And it was very subtle. Instead of just saying we're reversing the thing that we did a couple of weeks ago, they kind of stepped the wording a little bit. But the too long didn't read version, and really the thing's only a paragraph, it's not that long, but the too long didn't read version is, as of, this is quoting, as of March 2015, all Office product updates will be offered via Microsoft Update, except for non-security updates for server products. Individual and Uber server product updates will be published only to the Microsoft Download Center, which is how it was in January 2015 and before. So, again, not too worried about all those farms that are going to get killed, because apparently they're not going to get killed anymore. But that was a crazy thing. So again, let's talk about what is and isn't happening. So what has always happened is security patches for SharePoint Server could come out through Windows Update or Microsoft Update. And these are the kind of things where Microsoft finds out that there's some kind of a vulnerability to SharePoint, and the Elbonians are going to attack. They're going to compromise all of our SharePoint servers by adding a bang at the end of our URLs and getting root access or whatever, something like that. Those are security patches. Those have always went out through Windows Update or Microsoft Update, and they had names like, MS05012, something like that. Those have always gone out through Windows Update and Microsoft Update, and they will continue to go out that way. What they added last month and then immediately ripped right back out was the non-security patches. So think about these as the bug fixes, feature enhancements, things like that. So if they added some code, maybe that added Esperanto search support, parsing Esperanto in search, that's not a security thing, though might make somebody go crazy if they had to start using Esperanto. But those kind of things did not come out through Microsoft Update in the past. They did for 3 short weeks in February 2015, and now they're back out. Those will not be updated. So what will continue to happen is there will be individual patches for individual components of SharePoint, and you'll be able to get those with Windows Update, or not Windows Update, but the Download Center. So those are things like if you want to update search, but not the rest of the product because there's problems. Those have always been there. I never linked to them, but those have always been out there, and they'll continue to be out there. And then also the Uber patches, the things that we affectionately refer to as cumulative updates or CUs. Those will continue to be all of the component patches for the different components, search, whatever, and all of the security updates for the product. So it'll kind of exactly be back to the way it was. It's kind of like that TV show Dallas, where they had the whole, JR was killed and all that. And then at the end of the season, you find out that Bobby's in the shower and it was all a big dream. Well, that's kind of what this was like. We all had this horrible dream where Microsoft was pushing SharePoint server patches out in Windows Update, and it destroyed farms all over the world. And then we woke up and that wasn't the case anymore. So that's the thing. I have edited my 2 blog posts on the topic to reflect this. If you see something anywhere else about it, let me know. But that was an interesting thing. I was not expecting that. I thought we were just going to have to live with it, and turns out we do not just have to live with it. So I appreciate that, and I think Microsoft was open to, apparently, to input on that. Anyway, so that's good. That is all good stuff. So that was kind of the big story, and that just broke this morning, and I just blogged about that this morning. That's a recent thing. The next thing that's pretty exciting, well, so before I go too much further, so Jason Himmelstein's in the chat room, and he mentioned that this is a lot like InfoPath going away, and I think we covered that on a previous podcast, but to recap, when SharePoint 2013 came out, InfoPath, the client, didn't really get any changes, didn't get really any updates. And they said, shortly after the product came out, they said, okay, InfoPath is deprecated. It will not exist in the next product. We're going to find something new. InfoPath works in 2013, but it won't work past that. And then they kept not finding out what they were going to replace it with. And they kept starting things like Fossil and then killing them. And then they came out here a month or so ago and said, we were just fooling. InfoPath will live to fight another day, live to serve another form, and InfoPath is now supported through SharePoint 2013. So again, that was another place where they backed off. So that was probably good. I know a lot of people use InfoPath, and since we didn't really know where InfoPath was going to go, what the story was going to look like, I think that it's good. I think they need to have that in place before they kill it. So the next big story, and I'm actually even a little more excited about this story than the previous story, and I was pretty excited about the previous story, is that it is official. I can actually talk about it. I will be presenting at the Microsoft Ignite conference in May. In 2 months, oh my God, 2 months. 2 months from now, I will be in Chicago, Illinois at the Microsoft Ignite conference telling everybody the good news about SharePoint. So very excited about that. I've got 2 sessions. One of them is a day-long pre-session, and it's called, and it's got a very exciting title, so make sure you're sitting down, End-to-End OneDrive for Business Planning, Deployment, Best Practices, and Adoption Techniques. Oh my God, how many of you guys are just jumping up and down that that's going to be a thing for a whole day? I know I am. There is going to be so much great information in this session. It is going to be so action-packed. So many things going on that I can't handle it on my own. I physically would not be able to handle all that information and get it all out there. And so I will be co-presenting with a friend of mine. You may have heard of her. She does a thing. I think she's got a blog and that kind of stuff. Somebody called Wonder Laura. Yeah, Laura Rogers. So I think this is the first time that Laura and I have ever presented together. And we're going to be doing it all day long the Sunday before Ignite, and that is out on the Ignite site. Now you can see that. So what we're going to be talking about is OneDrive for Business. So you know the user profile or the My Site document library stuff, but then all the back end stuff, the syncing and the client and all that kind of stuff. And the whole session is going to be about how to use it, how to plan for it, how to get it set up, how to get it configured, and then how to maintain it. So it's going to be an end-to-end thing. So Laura and I have a good complement of skills. You know, she's pleasing to the eye, and I am not, for instance, things like that. But she's going to talk about the end user pieces and the kind of the soft stuff, and then I'm going to be doing all the nerdy technical stuff, the PowerShell-y stuff. So it's going to be great for both audiences. It's going to be great for the admins who need to set it up and understand what all that means and what the thought process is and how to manage it and how to govern it. We're going to cover that, and then once we get you all excited about it and all whipped into a lather, then I'm actually going to set it up and we're going to sync it up and we're going to show you how it works and how to migrate it all out. It's pretty exciting. So if you go to the Ignite site, it's there. When you find that session, it says that some other guy is presenting it. Jeremy somebody is not presenting it. It's me. It's Laura. We're going to be doing it. So it's yeah, that's right, Daniel. We have a good complement of skills. She has skills, and I stand there and tell jokes. So and look stupid. So yeah, we've got that. But it's going to be kind of exciting. But we're going to cover it all from start to finish. And that one, I did a session. I did an hour-long session or a 75-minute session on this at TechEd last year, and it was good stuff. It got me kind of excited about that. And we're going to cover, hybrid pieces, authentication, all that. It's going to be. They've got it at the 300 level, and I think some people's brains might explode when they watch that. So that's going to be good. So I'm going to do that on Sunday. And then I've got one other session, and I don't know when that is. I haven't looked at the schedule yet. But I'll also be doing an upgrade session. Now, SharePoint 2016, while Bill's going to do some sessions on it and going to expose everybody to it at Ignite, it's not out yet. There's not going to be a lot of SharePoint 2016 content, not a lot of stuff because it's just not done. So this session will be upgrading to SharePoint 2013. It is not upgrading to SharePoint 2016. It is upgrading to SharePoint 2013, but the emphasis will be on getting yourself ready, getting upgraded to SharePoint 2013 to take that next step to get to SharePoint 2016. So it's going to be similar to the upgrade sessions that I've done before, but there's going to be a lot more cloudiness to it, a lot more thinking about that involved. So that one will be sometime during the week. I'm not sure when that one's going to be yet, but I'm going to be there, and I've already talked to some other folks about getting my fingers in some other things. So it's going to be a good week. I'm going to be pooped. I'm going to be exhausted. I'm kind of glad I've only got 2 sessions, honestly, because they're both going to be kind of draining. They've also released some more stuff, information about Ignite. So make sure you're planning for that. I've heard that some of the hotels are starting to get filled up, and that's kind of scary. But anyway, it's going to be great. I was glad I've known about this for a while and just haven't been able to say anything. So very excited. So hopefully I will see you all at Ignite. I assume that Rackspace is going to have a booth there. So as I've always said, if you see me at a conference, you got to come up, you got to say hey, and we will see you there. So Laura and I have that session. I don't know if Laura's got any other sessions, and I don't see her. She's in the chat room, but she's not talking, so she must be distracted. I don't know if she's got any others, but I think all of the sessions are in the website now. So, like, if you go in and search for speakers for the whole conference, there's like 510 speakers, something like that. So, Lori is saying that Lori and Laura have a session together as well, so you have that to look forward to. So it's all starting to fall together. It's only 2 months out, which is kind of scary, but it's going to be cool. So hopefully I will see you all at Ignite. Next topic. This was a cool one, and I had just had been talking to some coworkers about this like last week. But Kirk Evans, a guy at Microsoft, good friend of mine, who does developer-y stuff, published a blog post a couple of days ago on fixing the people picker for SAML claims using LDAP. So that's kind of a mouthful, but if you've ever used claims, you know what he's talking about. If you're not using claims, if you're just hooking up to Windows and using regular Windows auth and all that kind of stuff, if you go into the people picker and you want to give somebody permission to a document or something like that, you type their name in, the people picker, you do the whole resolve, it finds their name, and everything's great. If you're using custom claims providers and, against LDAP or whatever, you've already discovered that the people picker search doesn't work, or it works too well, depending on the way you look at it. It can't look for people, and so it tells you everything is a match. So if you put somebody's wrong name in or wrong email address or whatever, and they don't really exist, it'll say that they're a match, even though they're not. So Kirk's blog post is very developer heavy, but very good stuff on how to fix that. He writes a custom claims provider that does all the claims provider funny business, but also adds the piece that you can do searches for and get results back for. And that is something I can't believe they let the product out the door with this, because yes. So like Lori's saying in the chat room, it happens all the time. It's a gigantic pain in the butt. It's one of the huge barriers to entry for switching over to claims and using those things, because you can't do searches. Now again, this is only for LDAP providers, so it's not going to work for all your other different claims providers. But so read Kirk's blog post. That's at blogs.msdn.com/b/KA-Evans. And I'm not going to give you the link to at least not in the audio here, the link directly to that blog post of Kirk's, because you should read all of his blog posts. So you should just go to his webpage and read them all. But one of the things that Kirk links is a Codeplex project that kind of has that wraps this all up into one big product. His is all very codey and Visual Studio-y. But he at the bottom mentions that there's a Codeplex project that does the same thing, that's got a little more shine on it. Not as educational as Kirk's blog post, but a little more functional. Got some setup pages and things like that. And that is at ldapcp.codeplex.com. I will tell you that I have not used either one of these solutions, though I have no reason to believe that Kirk's doesn't work swimmingly. and I have no reason to believe that this other one that he linked does not work great, but I haven't tried either of those yet myself. But both are very good things, because when you start using things, other claim providers, that whole not being able to search thing really causes a lot of problems. And so it's good that there are some easy solutions out there to get that going. So here's a blog post that I posted almost a month ago, and then have just never had a chance to talk about, because there's always stuff coming up, or Shane was doing the podcast or something. But I wanted to talk about this one. This was a weird request that I got, and it's actually the opposite of the request that I normally get. And it was one of those things that as soon as the question came out, the autopilot kicked into my head. I'm like, oh yeah, here's how you do that, this. But then it was the opposite of the thing that I'm used to doing, and then I just had no idea what the hell to do. So I wanted to blog that and get that out for everybody. So the thing that normally gets asked is companies usually want to know if any accounts are set so that their password never expires. They consider this a bad thing for security purposes. They want to make sure that everybody has to rotate their passwords every 90 days or 180 days or whatever, and they want to go through their Active Directory and find the users who are set to password never expires, so they can uncheck that and make those accounts passwords expire. Again, for security purposes. And I don't disagree. Resetting passwords every 6 months or something is probably not too unreasonable. And that is an easy thing to do. There is an AD commandlet, search AD account, and it has a flag, password never expires, and that gives you all those users. It's just that simple. So I've given that advice out a dozen times, and it worked great, and it lets everybody do what they want to do. The question that I had a month ago was exactly the opposite. These people wanted everybody's account to be set to password never expires, and they wanted some PowerShell to go through and find the accounts that were not set that way. They wanted to find the accounts whose passwords were set to expire so that they could flip them to not expire. Again, the polar opposite of the thing that I'm used to doing. Well, it turns out, while there's a super easy way to do this with the search AD account commandlet, to do the opposite, there was no way to do the thing that I wanted to do. So you had to go another direction. So both of these use the Active Directory PowerShell commandlets. Those are installed by default on your domain controllers, or if you've got other servers, you can install the RSAT, the Remote Server Administration Toolkit, and then that will put them there. So you have to import the module, import module, Active Directory, to load those up. The search AD account commandlet won't give us what we need. So we have to go about it a different way. So what I ended up using was get AD user, which tries to give you everything about everybody, and I set a server side or a commandlet side filter, and that filter is on the password never expires property, and I set that equal to false. So basically it says get AD users, and here's a filter, pass this off to the server side, only return ones where password never expires equals false. And then you have to set your search base, your OU or whatever, and then kick back the name. So that took me way longer to figure out than it should have, because everything was set to do the exact opposite. So, the search AD account had an easy way to do the exact opposite. Nobody had an easy way to do it the way that I needed to. So got that out there, and that blog post is out there in my blog from a month ago. It's called How to Find Active Directory Users Not Set to Password Never Expires with PowerShell. But it was a good exercise, working my PowerShell muscles. So then I went through, and you can wrap that around and do accounts, so you can see how many accounts are set that way. When you're setting up your search base, be careful, because you might have service accounts or something that you actually do want the passwords never to expire. I always put my search accounts, or my service accounts, in a separate OU to block all that kind of stuff. But then if you want to find these accounts and set them so their password never expires, again, the exact opposite of conventional wisdom, you can do the get AD user filter, blah-de-blah, search base, and then pipe that through set AD user, password never expires is true, and that will go through and set that. So that's what we're doing for some of these folks until we, they figure out what the process is. We just have them run this once in a while, and that seems to do it. So that was an odd one, again, because it was just a weird intellectual exercise, because I'm just so used to doing the opposite. So here's, and in the chat room, there are some people who are looking to get banned. I don't know if they realize that in IRC, I can just click on a name and I can click kick and ban and all that kind of stuff and get people kicked out for no good reason. John Liu has said a particularly libelous thing. He said, I think Todd is just a developer hiding behind PowerShell pretending to be an admin. I don't know where people come up with these kind of ideas. I don't know if they just weren't raised right. I mean, I've met John a number of times. He didn't act like he'd been dropped on his head, but then he says things like this or writes things like this. I don't know. I don't know what gets into people like that. I don't know why people say mean things like that. I don't understand. But some good PowerShell stuff. I kind of got some other PowerShell stuff I'm looking at doing. I'll have to blog that soon also. I have a OneNote that has all of my blog posts that I never start that I'll have to go in there and see. So another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this was from a couple of weeks ago, and again, just haven't had a chance to talk about it. I got a question from a SharePoint administrator. They had a content database that was corrupt, and SharePoint was not happy with this corrupt database. They didn't know the nature of the corruption. They didn't have great backups, and they didn't want to have to roll back to a backup. And so they were looking around and talking, and their SQL folks said, well, you can run dbcc check db, and you can repair, and that will fix your database. And they probably, I think there's a newer version of that now than dbcc check db, but so their question to me was, if we do this repair, and it repairs the database, does that work for SharePoint? And I think I fell down. I blacked out for a minute, and time went kind of slow and all that kind of stuff. But I explained to them that that is a very bad thing, capital V, capital B, capital T, very bad thing. Don't do it. A couple of reasons for that. First off, we're not allowed to touch anything in SQL at all. That's just the rule. So we can't do edits. We can't do deletes. They don't even want us to do selects. They sure don't want us to do repairs. So Microsoft's got that knowledge base article, and I wish I would have linked it in here, that says don't touch the databases. Certainly doing a dbcc check db repair is making changes to those databases. So it's not supported. We can't do it. But on a more technical level, one step above the because I told you so level, the only way that dbcc knows how to repair a database is to delete things. That's the only thing that it knows how to do. That's the only way it can fix databases, is by deleting stuff that doesn't fit, that doesn't work, that's corrupt. So now think about how SharePoint's databases are set up. You probably can't, because they're set up really weird and you shouldn't be in there anyway. But it's going to go through and delete things, and you're not going to know what it's deleting. And in my past, when I was a junior SharePoint administrator, I had a database that got corrupt. And it had been corrupt for a while, and that was when I learned the valuable lesson that databases that are corrupt back up every bit as successfully as databases that are not corrupt. But that database was corrupt for a long time before we discovered it, because it was the web parts table and all this, it was some crazy stuff. But my point being is, if you run dbcc checkdb with repair and SharePoint seems to work, it still doesn't work. It's still there's probably places where you don't understand that there are corruption, that it's corrupted. So I told these people, I said, well, for your production server, you absolutely need to roll back. You have to restore a backup. There is no other supported option. If you want to be crazy, you can take that database into a non-production environment, do your repair on it, again, because corrupt databases back up magnificently and restore with every bit of corruption with them, and restore that into another farm somewhere, and then try to get your documents or your list items out or something. But you can't take that database and leave it in SharePoint. SharePoint hates that. So we hadn't talked about that SQL stuff in a while, but I did want to cover that again, because it seemed like, oh, you're fixing it. Yay! No, you're not fixing it. You're fixing one little piece and making a whole lot of other things much, much worse. So did want to cover that. All right. So, Jason, I haven't been watching myself, but I think my autofocus is fine. Something, my camera settings, my room is darker or something. There's something goofy with my camera tonight. I'm every bit as ruggedly handsome tonight as I normally are, but the lighting's off or something. I have to fire up the Logitech tools and see what's up with my camera. Okay, so I think that is all the big topics that I have tonight. I did want to mention that this weekend, I can't remember what it was, my wife and I were talking about something, and she made some crack about my tablet buying addiction, and I had to remind her that it's probably been over a month since I bought a tablet, so let's not act like this is a problem. Just wanted to mention that because you were all with me the last time my tablet buying purchases were questioned. Excuse me. So I've not purchased any tablets in the last 30-ish days, something like that. Okay, so now let's move on to the shameless self-promotion. So we've been talking about for a while, I'm going to be at SharePoint Evolutions in a month and a half or so. Doing my upgrade sessions 1 and 2. Those look like they are going to be on Wednesday morning, and that is April 22nd. The whole conference is April 20th through the 22nd. You can go to SharePointEvolutionConference.com and sign up for that. That is in London, England. If you haven't been to London, England, you're missing out. I've been there a few times. It's always great. So I will be doing that, and then I think Rackspace is going to have a booth there, so I'll be hanging out with those guys and some stuff like that. But if you're going to be there, if you're going to be at the Evolution Conference, find me, come up, introduce yourself, tell me something you like about the podcast, tell me like 7 things you don't like about the podcast. I would love to talk to each and every one of you. But I'll be running around, I'll be doing all that kind of stuff. So that's the SharePoint Evolution Conference, and that is April 20th through the 22nd. And then, remember that time I told you about how I'm speaking at Ignite? Yeah, now I can put it in the shameless self-promotion. So Microsoft Ignite Conference, May 4th through the 8th in Chicago, Illinois, at the McCormick Center, and ignite.microsoft.com to sign up for that. And Laura and I's pre-conference session will be on Sunday the 3rd, and that costs extra, I believe, but it's worth every penny, I promise. I'll be going around giving everybody hugs, stuff like that, so you'll get your money's worth. And then some, I promise. But that's ignite.microsoft.com. And 2 sessions, you go out there and find them, get signed up for them now. So thanks to everybody in the chat room. I'll stick around for a while. You guys have been particularly rowdy and chatty this evening. So thanks, everybody. I will be here next week. We're good for the next couple of weeks. I don't have any. So in 2 weeks, I will be gone for spring break, so I'll have to look into that. But have talked to a couple other folks about coming up onto the show. So as soon as I get word back from them and get that scheduled, we will have some new guests, some folks that we have not talked about before, not normal folks. So it's pretty exciting. Again, getting that nailed down, getting some topics nailed down, that will be in the upcoming weeks. So thanks to everybody. Sorry about 237 being late. Honestly, it was Shane. I'm kind of doing you a favor. But this week's will be out more soon, I promise. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.